So he says in verse 8, I literally have like 100 things more to say on verse 7, but let's look at verse 8. It says, the eye of him who sees me will behold me no longer. So you'll notice here at the bottom of verse 7, he says, my eye will not again see the good. And then he says, the eye of him who sees me will behold me no longer. Now, who's the eye of him there? Well, we could say the eye of him is the eyes of his friends and his wife and all those that still knew him when he's dead and gone. Well, he's not going to be able to see life anymore, but now they're not going to be able to see him. But notice something really interesting here. Job is not saying that you cannot see after you die. He's saying you can't see what is good. You can't see the life. And he's not saying that those that are remaining here on earth cannot see. Certainly they can see. They just cannot see him. Now you might think to yourself, well, of course, Miz, you're dead. But there's a spiritual reality here, is there not? Does it strike you that when in the Old Testament, we talk about Sheol, and we talk about the underworld, or however you want to phrase that in your own mind, does it ever strike you like the people that are on the other side are dead completely? Doesn't it strike you like there is some sort of life? And so what's interesting about this is that now Job, not only is he thinking about the life here on earth, he starts extrapolating that and starts to see, well, there's life also elsewhere. And that's interesting. And we have to try to dissect that. So look, it says the eye of him. Now, if this eye of him is referring to his friends, it certainly has to also refer to God. Because God sees as well. And so he's talking to God here, right? So he says, the eye of him who sees me will behold me no longer. What does he mean? There's a very interesting way of looking at this here. And it has to do, and I want to put it to you this way, because I think this will help you understand it. It's God's gaze versus God's stare. Okay? So if you gaze at a person, often it could create a sense of wonder in them, especially if you're trying to court a young lady. Let's say you're a single man and you want to court, you gaze upon a beautiful girl. You could gaze at her, or you could stare at her, right? And give her this kind of just creepy stare that scares her and intimidates her. And what's wrong with that guy? Why is he looking at me like that? So there's a difference. Well, I think there's a truth here that we can try to understand, where he says, the eye of him who sees me will behold me no longer. That is, the gaze that God had upon me is no longer going to be there. What does that mean? Well, I think it means something like this. God is looking at all of us. He is, while you have life, gazing at all of us. And as he sees us, what he sees is real clear to him. Now, when we look to God, it's not always clear what we see. But when he looks at us, it's very clear what he sees. He sees a sinful, pitiful, sorrowful person. That's what he sees. And that's important to know. Because the more God gazes at our condition, it doesn't create in him a sense of, man, they're awesome. It doesn't create in him a sense of wonder. It doesn't create him a sense of, they're so special. I'm going to do something for them. No. It creates, it enhances, it multiplies, it overflows in God what we call mercy. He sees the sinner. He sees the poor, wicked man in darkness, and he reacts with mercy. Think about that. Some people would argue that in Job, God is mean, that he brought calamity upon an innocent man. But hardly will they tell you that not only does God restore Job, but he allows Job to see him, and then he forgives the friends of Job. Mercy. It is it is hard to say this about God, and I don't mean this in any way that is trying to diminish our God. But if we can pick one attribute, one thing that describes God in relation to earth and the humans in it, is mercy. My father used to tell me when he was still around, when I was a kid, he says, if I was God, I would create a huge fireball and just hurl it at the world. I don't know how God can have so much mercy. He couldn't understand that. I don't think you and I can understand that. How God can take so much sin, so much aggression towards him, and still have mercy. Still give us things that we can enjoy. Not send more hurricanes, more tornadoes, more earthquakes, more volcanic eruptions. Just things that would completely annihilate us. Withhold the wrath of kings and princes. When we talk about nuclear war here and there, it gets to the limit, but then something happens. God changes the heart of men. God has the key in his hand and moves them in the direction that he wants to. Mercy. It defines the very providence of God. His eye sees all. So here he is. Job is saying, the eye of him who sees me will behold me no longer. His gaze of mercy will no longer be upon me. And then he says, your eyes will be on me, but I will not be. What does he mean by that? I think there's a spiritual reality here where Job is really seeking God. And Job, at times, it has these moments where he feels so disconnected from God that he says, well, have I lost all my hope? Where will I go after I die? If he's ignoring me this much here in this world, if he ignores me in the end, in the other world, I will cease to be. And that's what he's saying. Look, he says, the eye of him who sees me will behold me no longer. Your eyes, talking about God here, will be on me, but I will not be. Why? Because the gaze turns into a stare. And if God were to stare at you with his eyes of justice and not gaze at you with eyes of mercy, you will be undone. There's no coming back from that. You see, you may not be saved right now. You may not know who Jesus Christ is. You may not know who God is, but I guarantee you, the Word of God teaches us that his eye of mercy is on you. He's giving you life, and life is opportunity. But when this life is gone, oh, he'll look at you, but it'll be a stare. He's going to look deep into your soul. He's going to see what you did right and what you did wrong. And then you will be undone. We talk about breath in verse 7. Has so much to do with this because what it means at a deeper level, it means that God does not even give us enough time to undo the bad that we've done. We don't have enough years. I mean, there's men in the Bible that lived 800, 900 years. And in all that time, and they're serving God and living righteously, they still died because of their sin nature. They couldn't outlive their sin. It leaves, man, when you recognize, when you take inventory, when you take notice of life, it leaves you with nothing to hold on to except if you hold on to Christ. It's the only hope that we're given. It's the only hope we're given in the Word of God. It's to look upon the Son of God and cry out for mercy in this life. Because you don't have enough time to undo what you've done wrong. You don't have enough time to say, maybe tomorrow. You don't have enough time. He's gazing at you right now. Take notice. Take notice.